Hello and welcome to another survival game guide episode, specifically in our Medieval Dynasty series. In today's episode, we're going to cover the best crops to grow in Medieval Dynasty, but more specifically based on the size farm that you plan on having. Obviously, somebody who plans on having like a smaller farm, they might have, there might be a specific crop better for their needs compared to somebody who plans on having, a huge farm and all that. So we're kind of hit those beats essentially. So let's just get started here. For those who are planning to have a smaller farm, perhaps only like a plot or two, I highly suggest growing cabbage. That tends to be a great crop because if I can just get into our little technology here, I'll show you. That is great for, here we go, to make pottage. As you can see, to make pottage, you need the cabbage, the meat, and some wooden bowls, yes. And why I choose cabbage is because, for one, if you're feeding this to your villagers, that gets you, plus 30 food and plus 10 water right there, which is, way more than just basic meat. And, it also takes care of their water needs, so they're using less water, which is just fantastic. So those stats right there are awesome. If you plan on selling it, you can, obviously turn it into pottage first and foremost, but you can get 50 coin for that, have that or whatever, depending on where you are in your trading skill, but 50 base at least, I would say, and that is a great amount for just a very basic kitchen and a basic farm, a small farm. And the reason why I suggest going with cabbage as opposed to something like soup here is that you need a little bit more resources. You'll need 3 beetroot and 4 slabs of meat instead of your 3 and your 2 here. So it requires just a little bit more, more essentially. And while it does, give you better food and water, it sells for the same as pottage. So if you're keeping a small farm, personally, I just think grow up cabbage, make some pottage, and you can split that if you want, have some going to your villagers, sell some, or have it all, going one way or the other, however you want to do it. I think this pottage tends to give you the best bang for your buck. Again, just for a small farm. So if you don't plant anything, or if you only plant one thing, I should say, on your small farm, go for cabbage. If you are open to growing, 2 or 3 more crops, I would say kind of lean into maybe perhaps where you're going with your production. If you are planning to kind of focus in on sewing, for example, you want to get going on your clothes and whatnot, I would have your second or even just your first if you don't want, if you don't want to deal with your villagers eating fancy food or you don't want to sell pottage, to go with flax. And flax is needed to make, I think it's like linen or something like that, I believe. Let's see, I don't have the sewing button unlocked, I'm so sorry. But yeah, that's basically, like I'm pretty sure you make linen thread and your linen fabric from flax. And that is a crop that you can plant and you can grow, and it's very, honestly, it's very similar to wheat here and rye and oats. It's very grain-like. And you essentially take the stalks and you make it into your linen products, which you could then use to make various other kind of clothing items. So if you're kind of like, you want to use your small farm for your other production needs, perhaps instead of doing cabbage, you might go for flax. I would say the third kind of thing for small farms anyway, is that if you are looking at perhaps getting into more of the animal husbandry, like you don't really want to farm, but maybe you want to ranch, right? The best crops, and this is going to be a plural here, that you need to plant is going to be rye and oat. Because rye and oat, technology please, will be useful for making your animal feed, which I can't remember where you make that in or where you unlock that. But you make your animal feed out of rye and oat, and I believe straw as well. I'll just run over here so you can see it real fast, because I think I have it unlocked in here. I hope I do anyway. Animal feed, there we are. Yes, so you can see that you need your oat grain, your rye grain, and a little bit of straw to make animal feed. And animal feed is necessary If your animals aren't eating, they're not going to be producing anything. They don't really need that to survive, thankfully. They won't die of, like, starvation or anything, but they won't produce any goods for you. So if you plan on having perhaps not a small farm, but you want a larger, animal husbandry kind of life, I guess, grow rye and oat. And you will be fine. You don't have to spend that money on animal feed from other traders, which is, sustainability, right? That's what we're going for. So if you ever, if you're looking for a small farm, either just grow cabbage and call it a day. If you're leaning more towards just production, go for flax, I would say. And again, if you're going for ranching, go for rye and oat. Now, if you were planning to have like a medium-sized farm where, perhaps you want to lean into a little bit of like the crops growing and a little bit of your other productions, I would still say go cabbage to make that pottage. And I would say sell the pottage. Don't give it to your villagers. Just sell that and get that coin. Instead, I would also recommend growing the beetroot so that you can, there we go, make that soup and give that one to your villagers, because it doesn't make sense to sell this one since it's literally going to be, the same as the pottage. It's just that this one is going to feed your villagers a little bit more, and it's going to, take care of their water needs a little bit more. So if you are open to planting, two types of different kind of crops, go for cabbage and then, sell the pottage and then grow the beetroot and then give this soup to your villagers, and they will love it and they'll be like, I just love soup so much, hopefully. So yes, so that's just keep that in mind. If you don't mind expanding your medium-sized farm a little bit more, I would also say, again, if you're going for your animal husbandry, go rye and oat to take care of the animal feed, so you don't have to keep buying all that, and you can, save yourself some money. And also, I would say, if you, again, this is your farm, and if you don't mind the work, potentially also grow some wheat. Because you can turn your wheat into flour. I believe you can turn the other grains into flour as well. It's just that wheat does it a little bit better. We'll go to our little flour making stations that I don't have the actual windmill unlocked just yet here. But yeah, as you can see, like if you use rye, you'll get 5 flour. If you use oat, you'll get 5 flour. But if you use wheat, you get 10 times flour, which is obviously more efficient, makes more sense, right? And flour is great because you can then make a bunch of different baked goods out of it in your kitchen, and those baked goods can sell for pretty decent money in my humble opinion. So if you're going for medium-sized farm, I would say cabbage and beetroot for villagers and for selling, rye and oat for your animals. It's getting dark. For your animals, if you plan on having a ranch, and wheat if you want to make some more money beyond that with cooking and whatnot, and obviously flax as well. I would say too, if you are going to lean towards production as well with your crops. So that's good for your medium-sized farm. I would say if you stick to those crops or just focus on those initially, not a bad investment. And then finally, for those who plan on doing like a really big farm, usually like me, I just started my farm, as you guys saw in my last video. Things are growing, right? We love it, but this is a baby farm right now. We're going to be expanding this far beyond the hills here, hopefully. I would say plant everything, have fun with it. But I would honestly also just say perhaps get that cabbage down first, maybe get the beetroot down first if you can. And I would also honestly just say focus on getting your rye and oat down first, because before too long you'll be able to unlock the animals here. Like I'm getting kind of close to getting like the hen house and the pigsty unlocked, and once that happens, I'm gonna want to start having them produce eggs for me as soon as possible. So if I can have that rye and oat ready, I can start producing the animal feed and getting them fed, and then boom, I have eggs. I can start working making my baked goods and all that. So that's really awesome just to have that available, stock up on that just right from the start. And obviously, if all you're doing is primarily farming, also put your flax down, because once you unlock the sewing hut, you can start making those linen products, which also sell for a good chunk of change as well. So I guess that's about it, really. Depending on, again, like the size of your farm, either go for that cabbage, maybe one or two other things if you have the time for it or the interest in it. And the bigger that your farm becomes, or that you want it to be, become, um, the more you can experiment with the different crops and see, perhaps you find that maybe you just really like making the onions for like the meat and onion recipe. Maybe that's your go-to. It's you'll find and what works for you and what you like doing and all that. But just to give you the bang for the buck, those are the crops that I personally recommend. Hang on. Hi, buddy. How you doing? Yeah, so if you guys have any other questions about farming or, about crops or anything like that, do let me know in the comments. And if you guys have any other kind of farming strategies or anything like that, do share as well. But otherwise, thanks so much for watching, guys, and we will see you in the next one. But until then, keep surviving and keep thriving.